Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, December 9th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we are seeing a surge in COVID-19 cases with San Diego County poised to surpass a total of 100,000 cases by the end of the week. Late this afternoon, the county reported 2,104 cases and 15 more deaths. Another troubling trend, an increase in hospitalizations and ICU admissions. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has the latest.
No one is happy about the situation and the impact on businesses, but life is not going to get back to normal. Businesses are not going to fully reopen until we take all the steps to stop the spread.
Intensive care unit bed space is falling. In the Southern California region, just 9% of staffed ICU beds are available, and if nothing is done, we could be at bed capacity in San Diego County by Christmas.
But what we have to do is change that trajectory, and we have to go in a different direction. The regional stay-at-home order is designed to do that, and the aim of the regional stay-at-home order is to get people to stay at home.
But physical beds are just one piece. You have to have the healthcare workers to staff them.
My biggest concern is our ability to staff beds.
Palomar health officials say a 200-bed federal field hospital could be ready to use within a week. They have set aside a team of 50 healthcare workers, but are still determining the best use of the facility located in Escondido.
Today we have another day of more than 2,000 cases. And it's important to put in context, it was not that long ago where we might have 200 or 300 cases a day.
Despite the increases, local officials successfully lobbied to have playgrounds reopened. The state is relaxing restrictions.
As parents, now the obligation is on us to make sure we use those playgrounds responsibly.
Healthcare officials say they have been in situations when ICU capacity has been very low, like in some flu seasons, but they say the challenge with coronavirus is the long recovery time for infected healthcare workers. And they say they cannot sustain long-term operations when ICU beds are 85 to 95% full. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Hospitalizations for COVID-19 are on the rise and expected to keep on growing. The current tally is more than 900 patients confirmed or suspected to have COVID. Another 600 could be admitted in the next couple of weeks based on county data. Demetrios Alexio leads the Hospital Association of San Diego and Imperial Counties, and he says hospitals can add space with emergency tents. But to meet staffing needs, hospitals may seek relief from a state law that mandates certain nurse-to-patient ratios.
There are some options as it relates to capacity, but again, I would still put it back on staffing that we need to figure out and continue to work at having adequate staff, whether it's the state helping us, whether it's flexing nurse staffing ratios.
But the California Nurses Association told KPBS that operating outside the ratios can affect patient care and nurse safety. A spokeswoman said she's worried hospitals are not first exhausting other options, such as canceling elective surgeries. NPR has created an online tool that can show you at a glance if the hospital closest to you is nearing capacity. You'll find it on our homepage at kpbs.org. Tomorrow, the FDA meets to determine whether the Pfizer vaccine will be authorized for emergency use in the United States. Once that happens, San Diego County could get 28,000 doses of the vaccine within days. As Nadia Romero reports, it comes as the U.S. averages more than 206,000 new cases a day.
Hospitalizations and deaths from COVID-19 soar.
We're experiencing a surge like we've never seen.
But hope may be on the horizon. Thursday, the Food and Drug Administration will consider whether the United States should grant emergency use authorization to a COVID-19 vaccine.
I'm very excited about the results.
The vaccine from Pfizer and BioNTech is approved in Canada and the United Kingdom, with people in Great Britain already receiving vaccinations.
It's a quick, painless jab, doesn't take long.
But after 2 healthcare workers experienced an allergic reaction, UK health authorities warn those with a significant history of allergic reactions should not get that vaccine.
40,000 people plus participated in evaluating this vaccine, and only rarely did they see any kind of allergic reaction. So this is not a major concern.
Once authorized in the United States, it will only take days for the first Americans to get the vaccine. Then,
20 million people should get vaccinated in just the next several weeks.
As the government works towards the most massive vaccination effort in a century.
We expect that in the second quarter of next year, we'd have enough vaccine for all Americans that want it.
Health experts hope Americans believe the science.
We must build the trust in the American people. We must make them understand that the science that went into this, that the oversight that went into this is gold standard. We just want to make sure that everybody gets this vaccine because we got to get our lives back.
In Washington, Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom has reversed course on last week's order to close playgrounds due to the statewide surge in COVID-19 cases. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says many parents are now relieved.
Parents and kids wasted no time in taking advantage of the reopened playground at Trolley Barn Park in University Heights. When ICU capacity in Southern California fell below 15% last week, the state ordered playgrounds closed, but parents pushed back and the governor relented on Wednesday. Nicholas Estrada was glad to get out of the house with his 3-year-old daughter, Amora.
I'm a single father, so I'm trying to do the best I can to keep her engaged as well as myself. With everything going on, it's definitely been difficult. Just trying to take it day by day and wake up and find new things to explore to keep her engaged and myself.
Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez was among several state lawmakers who wrote Governor Newsom, urging him to reconsider the playground closures. She says for parents who have a private yard, playgrounds may not seem that important.
But in communities like mine, where really you have so many people in apartments, or you have so many people without big yards or any yard, the play structure may be the only opportunity to get these young kids outside.
Marcia Lutio homeschools her kids Nalu and Phoenix. She says it's good for them to be able to interact with other kids, even if it means wearing a mask.
And it gives the kids an outlet, a really natural way for them to play and run around and get out of the house, stimulates emotional and mental and physical health, just gives them hope in general.
Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A win for a Chula Vista church challenging the state's ban on indoor worship services. A federal appeals court ordered a lower court to revisit its ruling, which denied South Bay United Pentecostal Church's request for a preliminary injunction. The 3-judge panel based its decision on a U.S. Supreme Court ruling in favor of churches challenging New York State's coronavirus-related restrictions. Stater Brothers Markets is once again giving employees hazard pay as COVID-19 cases are at their highest peak since the pandemic started. KPBS North County reporter Jacob Ayers says a grocery workers union is working to get other stores to follow suit.
The United Food and Commercial Workers International Union, or UFCW, came to an agreement with Stater Brothers Markets to reinstate the company's $2 per hour hazard pay. It applies to all 18,000 hourly employees in its store, distribution, transportation, and construction operations and corporate offices across California for at least 3 weeks from the work periods that started December 6th and 7th. In a company statement last Friday, Stater Brothers CEO Pete Van Helden said, "I continue to be proud of our employees who display their extraordinary dedication every single day, and this wage incentive is but a small token of our company's appreciation of their efforts." At the beginning of the pandemic, Stater Brothers was like many other grocery companies who instituted hazard pay. The organization ended up extending their benefits 5 times to run through June 14th. But during the current wave of rising COVID-19 infections, they find themselves in the minority of grocery stores to give bonus pay to their employees.
Kroger, which is Ralph's Food for Less, they are not doing it. They were the first company to pull out from doing it. We've asked them continually to please reinstate the hazard pay. Albertsons Vons has given their workers a bonus basically a $5 an hour bonus averaged over a week's worth of pay, which is something. It's something, and I recognize that, but they can do more too.
A grocery outlet that is giving additional pay to employees is Trader Joe's, which is not part of the UFCW. In an email to KPBS, the company said they are continuing to provide an additional $2 for every hour worked. The thank you pay will remain in place until at least March 31st, 2021, or until we're no longer considered an essential business. The UFCW represents workers at some of the nation's largest grocery store chains like Albertsons, Ralph's, and Vaughn's. It said that among their members, there have been at least 109 grocery store worker deaths and over 17,400 infections or exposures to COVID-19 since the onset of the pandemic.
We've had members who've been quarantined numerous times. They don't have any sick leave left. The lack of sick leave, lack of paid leave is encouraging or forcing somebody to choose, do I go to work and put food on the table, or do I stay home, which is the right thing to do, and not infect other workers?
The UFCW union is demanding that retailers and grocery companies also provide free personal protective equipment and COVID-19 tests to all employees. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Today is San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer's last day in office. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen looks back at Faulconer's nearly 7 years as mayor and what he accomplished.
It's time for us as a community to come together to decide the future of the Chargers in San Diego.
Kevin Faulconer in his first State of the City address in January 2015. Keeping the city's football team by building them a new stadium was a top priority. Faulconer created a stadium task force and spent more than $2 million on an environmental impact report to clear the stadium for construction.
And so I want to thank the Spanos family, the entire Chargers organization, and the fans for your continued commitment to San Diego. Working together, we can get this done.
They didn't get it done. Chargers officials repeatedly rejected the city's suggestions. In 2016, the team placed a tax measure on the ballot to fund a new stadium downtown, and Faulconer endorsed it, but voters rejected it overwhelmingly.
I was one of those folks that never thought they were going to stay.
Gil Cabrera is an attorney who chaired the city's Ethics Commission and the board of the Convention Center Corporation. He says the time and money Faulconer spent on the stadium issue was a waste.
Give them the best offer they're going to get from us, and then give them a deadline and then move on, but we dragged it out for years.
Cabrera is among those who see Faulconer's tenure as marked by big plans that failed to pan out. Another example, the Convention Center expansion.
It's time to settle this once and for all and get the Convention Center expanded.
That was from Faulconer's 2016 State of the City address. The Convention Center expansion was always a top priority for him, but time after time his efforts to get it done came up short. Cabrera says he doesn't lay all the blame on Faulconer, but
I think there was a lot of delays that probably weren't necessary. I mean, we went through, I think, 2 or 3 State of the City addresses where we talked about we were going to do something and then nothing happened that year.
One achievement Faulconer touts most frequently is the city's 2015 Climate Action Plan, which requires the city to cut its greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2035. Nicole Capritz leads the nonprofit Climate Action Campaign and was one of the plan's main architects.
I think he enjoyed the accolades that came with passing the climate plan, but I don't think his heart was ever in the implementation of the climate plan.
Capritz says Faulconer was too slow in starting the transition to 100% renewable energy, and she says he hasn't been the biggest champion for reducing the city's dependence on cars.
He's mostly a go-along, get-along kind of guy, and if he can sidestep more challenging conversations, then he's likely to do that. Now, to his credit, when we sort of built the community and political will to take on some of the harder conversations around transit and around, community choice energy, he eventually did, but it's not his default.
Others give Faulconer more credit for his own coalition building. In his last few years as mayor, housing affordability took center stage. Mary Leiden is a land use consultant who led the coalition group Housing U Matters. She praises Faulconer for uniting business groups, builders, environmentalists, labor unions, and social service providers, all under a pro-growth agenda.
So he was the leader that did that. All kinds of policy has been put into place in the last couple of years, and we'll see in the next few years if those strategies actually are working.
Among those strategies, ending parking requirements for new apartment buildings near public transit, rezoning parts of the city for higher density housing, and adding new incentives for developers to include subsidized affordable homes in their projects. Leiden says none of that was easy.
San Diego has kind of a reputation for being a NIMBY city. It's beautiful here. You know, we love our communities. We don't want it messed with. But there's other things at play. And housing became the issue that our leaders needed to focus on. And Mayor Faulconer stepped up to the plate on that.
As many have long suspected, Faulconer is considering a run for governor in 2022. As a Republican in blue California, the odds are stacked against him, and voters will look to his record as mayor for evidence he has what it takes to lead the state. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And you can listen to our exit interview with Mayor Faulconer at kpbs.org. President-elect Joe Biden could make history with his choice for Secretary of Defense. Retired General Lloyd Austin would be the first African-American to lead the Pentagon. But as Jeff Zeleny explains, federal law could get in the way of Austin's confirmation.
He's the definition of duty, honor, country.
President-elect Joe Biden making one of his first commander-in-chief decisions, introducing retired Army General Lloyd Austin as a Secretary of Defense to help rebuild America's frayed alliances.
He's loved by the men and women of the armed forces, feared by our adversaries, known and respected by our allies, and he shares my deeply held belief in the values of America's alliances.
Austin would become the first African-American to lead the Pentagon, a barrier-breaking pick, considering 40% of the nation's active-duty troops, but few high-ranking leaders are people of color. They've known each other for years and worked together to end Operation Iraqi Freedom.
You can expect that as Secretary of Defense that I will give you the same direct and unvarnished counsel that I did back then.
After rising to the highest levels of the Army and serving 41 years, Austin retired in 2016.
I come to this role, this new role, as a civilian leader, with military experience to be sure, but also with a deep appreciation and reverence for the prevailing wisdom of civilian control of our military.
To be confirmed, Congress will need to waive federal law requiring a 7-year gap between military service and civilian leadership, which some members of Biden's own party have balked at.
I would not be asking for this exception if I did not believe this moment in our history didn't call for it.
Former Secretary of State Colin Powell, a retired black four-star Army general himself, said Congress should confirm Austin, saying he has demonstrated his warfighting skills and his bureaucratic, diplomatic, and political acumen. Biden has now settled on nearly half of his cabinet, with the latest picks of Ohio Congresswoman Marcia Fudge going to housing, and former Ag Secretary and Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack heading back to USDA. The Attorney General remains the biggest post still unfilled. CNN has learned Alabama Senator Doug Jones, Judge Merrick Garland, and former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates are the leading contenders. Officials tell CNN that several more cabinet picks are coming before the holidays, and 6 weeks from today, Biden will be sworn in as president.
And that was Jeff Zeleny reporting. San Diego's 2 naval hospitals have been tapped to distribute and administer the COVID-19 vaccine to military service members. Naval Medical Center in Balboa Park and the Naval Hospital in Camp Pendleton were announced by the DoD today. The first doses could come next week with the FDA. If the FDA approves it, troops won't be compelled to get the vaccine, but it will be made available to active and reserve members of the armed forces. Nurses find hope in the COVID-19 vaccine, but they know the fight against the coronavirus is far from over. Camila Bernal has an inside look at one Los Angeles County hospital at the front of the line to receive the vaccine and its plans to administer it to the general public.
It's not easy for Patricia Tapia to suit up. She does this every time she sees a patient with COVID-19.
It's scary, but we have to. I mean, somebody has to do it.
Soon, she could be adding a new form of protection against the virus, the much anticipated vaccine. And though she's worried about potential side effects, she also understands it's necessary.
I'm willing to get the vaccine.
The LA County USC Medical Center is one of the 2 hospitals in the area designated to distribute the vaccine once available. It has the freezers necessary for storage, and hospital officials are currently figuring out how they will administer it and to whom.
The goal is to find the most efficient way to deliver these vaccines as safely as possible to the largest group of people that we can.
First, it'll be frontline workers.
It feels really exciting to be one of the first to potentially get the vaccine.
Eventually, regular citizens will have access as well.
We are exploring different modes of delivery, and one of them potentially could be a drive-up model.
Drive-thrus in Southern California have been mostly successful administering COVID-19 tests and other vaccines like the flu. The hospital is considering a similar method for the COVID-19 vaccine and could serve as a model for hospitals across the country.
Everyone's going to be looking at best practices, what works the best, and I think that's where they're going to follow.
Figuring out the logistics and the process will be difficult, as well as convincing healthcare workers and everyday Americans to take it. But these nurses say they want it if it helps bring an end to this pandemic.
A lot of people are dying, so I'll agree that we should all get the vaccine.
I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
Herd immunity is a term we'll be hearing more about. KPBS Midday Edition spoke with an infectious disease specialist about this important part of the process.
If we want to get back to easier and better lives and not as miserable as they have been in the past year, we need to vaccinate as a community. And if a community vaccinates, that community will be protected.
Dr. Francesca Torriani says it will require about 75% of the population to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. You can hear more of that interview on the Midday Edition podcast. Citing the promising progress on vaccines, the California State University system announced today that it is planning to return primarily to in-person courses starting next fall. San Diego State said it would delay the start of the spring semester by 2 weeks so that students could be tested for the virus before returning for limited in-person courses. With restaurants closed except for takeout and delivery, there may be a dining loophole. The general manager of Karina's Restaurant Group had the idea to turn parking lots into car hops. 4 of the restaurants, 2 in the Otay Ranch Mall and others in Chula Vista and La Jolla, will offer drive-in dining. He says by staying and eating in the car, guests could order their food in courses so the tacos don't get soggy.
Perfect time, to get the cobwebs off that motorhome and bring it out and bring the family out.
Right now, he's only able to have 4 employees on the clock at a given time, but if the drive-in dining does go well, he says he might be able to add more hours for his staff.
Well, our strong wind event just about over. Our winds will continue to diminish, and the flow is starting to turn more onshore now. With that, some cooler weather the next couple of days. But over the weekend, temperatures will gradually start to rise. And once again, we're missing out on precipitation, so it looks like generally dry weather here. Overnight tonight, 43 Oceanside, San Diego, 51 Escondido and El Cajon at 46, and Ramona's at 35. We'll dip down to 43 Borrego Springs and 28 in Mount Laguna. Looking at our weather for Thursday, the upper low is on the move, and with it, rain and snow. But that just misses us. Look at that. Over here in Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado, rain and mountain snow as that upper low moves to the east. So it's just not in the right position for us. Looking at our temperatures, it'll be turning cooler. That 64 in Oceanside, San Diego 65, Ramona 60, and El Cajon 68. So light jackets and sweatshirts, you might want to have those around. Now looking at Friday, we'll be looking at seasonable conditions, and then over the weekend, temperatures will start to rise a little bit. And once again, all the active weather with precipitation staying to our north. So as we look at our temperatures day by day for you, You can see a little cooler with some clouds, but over the weekend it should be getting milder. And as we head to the inland sections, you can see the cooling here, low 60s. But by Sunday, we're back in the low 70s. Across the mountain areas, 50s next couple of days. And there you can see over the weekend, looks like plenty of sunshine, pretty nice. And in the deserts, here too, missing out on precipitation, just a few clouds around. And then we'll see the return of sunshine and temperatures slowly rising. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Some military families are getting a helping hand this holiday season.
Here's a $20 gift card to the commissary. Did you want your items in the front seat or back?
This morning, the Armed Services YMCA held their annual drive-through toy distribution known as Operation Holiday Joy. Organizers say they have enough toys to make sure more than 1,000 kids have presents to open on Christmas.
This is about brightening the holidays for a military family. They can put those toys right under their tree. We'll basically have roughly 4,000 toys go out and about 50, 80 bikes that will be going out as well. And to be quite candid, we're going to get to the families that are on the waiting list, and we're going to be sending some toys up to our Marines and sailors there at 29 Palms as well.
Thanks to donors, it's the 31st year of the event. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.